I am New York.
Я сам Нью-Йорк.
I am New York.
Yo soy Nueva York.
Sono New York.
Je suis New York.
We are New York!
Welcome to DiverseCITY, where we explore New York's eclectic enclaves, one neighborhood at a time. I'm Zyphus LeBron. This month, we're going to take a look back at some of the segments we've done that focused on animals, and a new one we produced about insects. Whether they're feathered or furred, a menace or a mascot, animals are a big part of the city experience. Nearly half of New York households own a pet. 27% own dogs and 21% cats, according to the website seniorliving.org. Beyond pets, run-ins with a deer, or in an extreme case, a bear, are becoming more commonplace just outside of the city. Conservationists report that such interactions, in part, are a result of these animals losing their habitats to man-made developments. On this episode, all abuzz, beekeeping on the rise in the city, and why there's more than money in honey. Frequent flyers, a tradition passed on for generations, is on the verge of disappearing. And working like a dog, why these powerhouse pups have become a critical part of Governor's Island ecological balance. Those stories and more coming up on this summer special episode of DiverseCITY. There's been a lot of buzz, sorry, I couldn't help it, about bees in the city recently. For some, it's about cashing in on the $20 price tag for an 8-ounce jar of honey. But, as Shannon Ayala reports, some grassroots organizations are promoting beekeeping as a means for communities to be part of a larger environmental preservation effort.
It needs to stay at 94 degrees. So they have these spaces in between to be able to control the temperature.
Maker Park in Stapleton on Staten Island's North Shore has become home to the Bee University. The program is part campaign initiative, part community empowerment program started by Ronti Ogunle's campaign. At the time of this piece's production, he was running for District 49's city council seat that includes much of Staten Island's North Shore.
Just advertising a lot on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. We had a survey to see who might be interested. Initially, we wanted to make it just for youth, but we opened it up to people of all ages.
Jacqueline Caruso is the program's coordinator, while Ronell St. Jor is the instructor. He's got 5 seasons of beekeeping under his belt. He leads the students, who range from ages 11 to 60, through the basics of beekeeping, as well as the impact these creatures have on the environment.
We've spoken about the ecology of honeybees and how they help pollinate and how they're important in our food system and agricultural system.
The university is one of the many beekeeping programs that have been popping up around the city. This is due, in part, to a 2010 suspension of a city ordinance that prevented the keeping of bees and, oddly enough, whales.
People that were studying colony collapse disorder actually came to the conclusion that the solution was going to be decentralizing beekeeping and having many more hobby beekeepers help keep the population of honeybees alive.
So what is colony collapse disorder? It's the phenomenon that occurs when the majority of worker bees in a hive disappear and leave behind a queen, plenty of food, and a few nurse bees to care for the remaining immature bees and the queen. Beekeepers in the U.S. started noticing the trend in 2006 through 2007, when they began losing 30 to 90% of their hives. Dr. Patton says that there are many factors that contribute to the phenomenon, including pesticides, barrel mites that eat the bees' livers, and the emergence of single-crop commercial agriculture.
What used to be the case with individual farmers is Farmer Jones next to Farmer Smith would have a fence line between their fields. And you can't run a tractor right up to the fence line. You have to turn around maybe 15 or 20 feet from the fence line. So what would happen on 15 or 20 feet of either side of the fence line, it was called a fence row, And there would be a wide diversity of plants growing there, weeds, small trees, bushes. And this provided a lot of forage for bees and other native pollinators. And so that was a good support. As things became more corporate, these fence lines got plowed down and turned into farm field because they are land and can produce crops. And so now there's a lot less fence rows and diversity.
Dr. Todd Patton's day job is serving as medical director of the Osborne Foundation, a nonprofit that helps former felons when they leave prison. He started a beekeeping program there, but couldn't pass on his passion. He's got 20 years of experience caring for bees. He says that ensuring that bee populations thrive is no small matter.
The aphorism in beekeeping is that every third bite of food you put in your mouth had a honeybee involved in it. And that also applies to meats because cattle eat alfalfa, and alfalfa is pollinated by honeybees. So animals that we eat for food are dependent on honeybee pollination as well.
While there's significant science behind why it's important to keep bee populations healthy, longtime keepers will tell you there's something spiritual about the process. Some newbies at the university already agree.
Can I have my smoker step up?
There are members of our current Bee University group that it has religious significance. My students taught me that in the Quran, there's talk about beekeeping as being a sacred practice. So it's amazing. And I think that people from all different backgrounds can adopt this practice into their lives.
The organizers hope the BU concept can be implemented on other parts of the island as a means of inspiring a community approach to environmental preservation. Shannon Ayala, reporting for DiverseCITY.
If you've ever walked the streets of New York, you've probably encountered a pigeon, or two. But have you ever thought of keeping one as a pet? Well, there is a close-knit community of Brooklynites in Bushwick that actually raise and breed hundreds of them at a time. For over a half of a century, these pigeon keepers have created a safe haven for these birds that commonly get a bad rap. Crystal Lowe has the story.
Good morning, fellow flyers. The power team is up. Panama's daily fly.
Delroy Panama Sampson is a retired electrician who has been breeding pigeons in Bushwick for over 55 years. He says some of the older Italian, Irish, and Polish men who enjoy pigeon rearing and racing took him under their wings as a way of keeping him out of trouble.
I used to go to the pet shop with the birds, and then the guys was nice enough to come to my house. And so see all these white men come into my house, and about three of them, and they came to my mother and father and told them, listen, he's a good kid, and if you want to keep him out of trouble, let him have his hobby. We'll help him get the coop up on the roof and everything. It's kind of making me choke up to think about that. That was nice. And they helped me build the coop.
It was Italians who brought the game to the U.S. over 100 years ago, in an effort to continue the sport they loved to play back in the old country. Panama is one of many black and brown boys who were recruited by these men when their own sons and family moved away from Bushwick.
Their sons would bring the 50-pound sacks of feed over their shoulders up the ladder. Their sons would help clean the feces off the coop and maintain it. But as these guys' sons moved out to the suburbs, New Jersey, Long Island, and they were getting older. And so what I realized happened was a lot of the men of color I met who at the time were in their 20s and 30s, when they were kids, they would see these coops. The ethnic whites would say, hey, kid, I'll pay you $5 a week if you clean my coop and help me take care of it. And then they would basically mentor these boys who became apprentices and grew into men who kept up flying pigeons.
Professor Colin Jerolmack is the chair of the Environmental Studies Department and a professor of sociology at NYU. He is also the author of a book called The Global Pigeon. Professor Jerolmack's research led him on an eye-opening journey into a world of pigeon keeping in Bushwick.
I lived in East Williamsburg, right at the border of Bushwick. And when I would go up on my rooftop, I would see rooftop pigeon coops and men waving these bamboo poles with flags on the end, and these stocks of hundreds of pigeons circling.
Numerous environmental studies and surveys suggest that there are anywhere between 4 to 8 million pigeons living in New York City. In fact, one statistic claims that there are approximately 1 pigeon for every 2 people in the city. They're attracted to New York City because of the tall buildings, window ledges, rooftops, and bridges. These features are perfect substitutes for the cliffside ledges they're naturally accustomed to in the wild. In Bushwick, informally, you have your companions, flyers, and racers. None of these categories are exclusive of the other. While some people breed and raise their pigeons for companionship, others raise them in the hopes of flying them to participate and compete in competitions locally, nationally, and globally.
So you race for prizes. And there's a group of people that race in the 5 boroughs, which is called the Combine. A club is just a club, and everything in the 5 boroughs is called Combine.
Pigeon racing is one thing, but the guys I first started hanging out with are not racing pigeons. What they do is they breed a type of pigeon. They breed one of 2 types, either a breed called a New York Flight because it was first bred in New York, or another type of pigeon called a tiplet. And these pigeons, what they're good at is flying really high. So pigeons don't like to fly high because they can get picked off by hawks. And so, but these guys take a breed that is particularly bred to want to fly high and to have endurance. And the idea is you train hundreds of them usually to fly in a stock, they call it, very tightly together.
The racers are the guys who send out homers, and they go for a distance, hundreds of miles, and the first one to get back to the coop wins. My guys were flyers. They would send up their whole coop into the sky, and they would form these big tornadoes of birds, and they would try to lure back the enemy birds, which were their friends' birds, to their coop. And the flyer who got the most birds won for that day.
Travis Roozée is a freelance photographer and photography instructor. Roozée spent 6 years in Bushwick capturing images of pigeons and their keepers. He went on to display them at Central Park's Arsenal Gallery. He says that changes in the neighborhood are contributing to the disappearance of breeders and coops.
As buildings went condo or things were torn down, like access to a roof that somebody will let you build an illegal structure on and have, hundreds of pigeons up there, it was disappearing.
The culture also took a major hit in 2016 when a fire destroyed a significant amount of the remaining coops and buildings. Even with that, pigeon keepers like Panama remain dedicated to sustaining the culture by ensuring that his coops are up to city code.
Mine is legal. Before I put the coop up, I registered with the city. I got a permit. This is considered a part of the house.
He says despite the decline in pigeon keeping, he thinks the practice will carry on.
I think the sport's going to be here for quite some time still, even if it diminishes to the very few, because it gets you away from the bush, the hustle and bustle of New York. It gets you away from the entrapment of this city.
Crystal Lowe for DiverseCITY.
An unassuming penguin statue sits on a median near the border of Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, seemingly out of place, but known to locals for its storied past and colorful attire. Vanessa Monet tells us more.
If you're not familiar with him, he's about 22-inch high bronze penguin that sits in the Elm Jack divider.
Jackson Heights resident Jody Shadoff is the creator of Wink the Penguin's Facebook page. She started the page in 2012 as a way of sharing her appreciation for the neighborhood icon.
I became fascinated by him and started looking up his history, and the more I looked up his history, the more I wanted to record it someplace, and so I created a Facebook page. And I was surprised when he started getting a following, and people started posting on the page little events that were happening in the neighborhood and, sharing resources. So he became even more of a thing.
Wink was the brainchild of the late New York City Parks Commissioner Henry Stern. Stern, who was known to be very quirky, loved animals. The penguin was placed on the Elm Jack Mall to keep drivers from making U-turns over the median at the request of then City Councilman John Sabini. The logic was that Wink is a Magellanic penguin that represents the large South American population in the neighborhood. Wink wasn't always a solo act. He had a twin, but birds of a feather don't always flock together.
So there was a penguin on either end of Elm Jack Meridian, and somewhere in the early 2000s, Wink's twin brother disappeared. Whether he was kidnapped, whether he ran away from home, nobody knows, because we never heard from him. There was no ransom note.
The flightless birds seem to have a habit of taking off. In 2009, Wink disappeared, only to be found 6 months later and eventually returned to his rightful perch on the Elm Jack Mall. Wink's become somewhat of a neighborhood mascot, so much so that local resident Elsie Carballo has taken him under her wing and started dressing him in festive attire for various parades and cultural events, beginning with Colombian Independence Day in 2006.
Wink's outfits don't last long. They are there for the holiday, usually in Christmas a week before and maybe through New Year's, because he's out there in the elements. So he's out there in the rain, he's out there in the snow, and they are not left until they're bedraggled.
At first, no one knew who had been dressing Wink up, but all was revealed in 2016 when Wink and Elsie were honored with a Good Neighbor Award by the Jackson Heights Beautification Group. Over the years, Wink has worn a multitude of outfits and posed for countless photos, but there's one image that stands out to Jody.
He's got his little red hat on, and he's looking directly at the Roosevelt Avenue 74th Street station. I feel like he's looking over the neighborhood because that's our main hub. And I feel like he's kind of our little guardian penguin. Not actually guardian angel, he's our little guardian penguin that looks over Jackson Heights. Everybody needs someone to look out for them, and we have Wink.
For Diverse City, I'm Vanessa Monet.
Staten Island's 9,600 acres of parks and natural woodland are being threatened by an unlikely invader, white-tailed deer. These deer have been crossing over from New Jersey and are eating their way through the forest in the Borough of Parks. This has left the borough somewhat at odds with the city as to how best to address these browsing beasts. The problem began about 15 years ago when deer would cross the Kilvancull River from New Jersey and started showing up on people like Charlie Stoffer's doorstep. Stoffers found that it wasn't just his prize-winning garden that was being eaten.
They've eaten all the ground cover, small bushes, berries, other things that other critters would need to survive, things that would stop soil from washing away due to, causing erosion and that kind of thing.
The deer aren't only a danger to the forest. They caused a spike in car accidents and carried the ticks that spread Lyme disease. So, 5 years ago, the city's Parks Department employed the non-profit conservation group White Buffalo to initiate a first-of-its-kind deer vasectomy program. The city reports that the program has been able to reduce the deer population by about 24%. They've also recorded a drop in the related problems. But Stoffers says that the program doesn't account for the fact that the female deer, or does, can remain in heat for an extended period.
If a female deer doesn't get pregnant, she can remain in estrus for an extra 3 or 4 months. So where estrus would normally take place between October through January, let's say, deer can still be looking to get lucky come March and April.
What's more, there are concerns that the program's initial cost of $3.3 million has now ballooned to $6.6 million. This has, in part, led to calls for a controlled hunt with bows, not guns, to cull the deer population. That's despite Mayor de Blasio's and the NYPD's objections.
Oh, I absolutely would not support anybody walking through the woods with armament. I'd rather see the reintroduction of wolves to take care of this. A limited bow hunt would take place in an area that can be somewhat cordoned off. It would take place during a very brief period of time, and it would probably take the time period would probably be when people are less active and less likely to be in the area. It wouldn't be in somebody's backyard.
Whether it's protecting the undergrowth of Staten Island's forest, reducing car accidents, reducing Lyme disease, one issue after another, unless you're going to really wipe out the deer, you're going to be left with some deer. You're going to have more deer. You're going to have to kill every year. It's a seesaw. We've seen this happen in other places where killing just doesn't get you the results that you're looking for.
David Karopkin is an animal rights attorney who has been fighting to protect the increasing population of deer and turkey on Staten Island. He supports the vasectomy program, in addition to promoting coexisting literature that the Parks Department has already posted on its website.
There is a tremendous amount of solid information that should be serving as a starting point for creating, an existence that we don't wake up and see wildlife and think, oh, why is there a deer here? But really understand that they're part of our world.
Part of that coexistence includes reminding residents to not feed the deer. That and the fact that they have no natural predators on the island contributed to the population proliferating in the first place. In the meantime, the Parks Department has sprayed deer repellent, installed more than 7,000 tree guards, and thousands of feet of enclosure fencing to protect young saplings.
Exclosure certainly is a step to take now while we're still deciding on a long-term management plan for the deer. Let's protect these little oases in the forests, right? So that when we do have a plan, perhaps we can revegetate the forest with those native plants.
Burke says that the vasectomy program will continue, and the message will be to coexist with the animals. He adds that the borough president's office will consult with the community going forward, but will ultimately let the science determine the next course of action. Finally from us, this piece from Governor's Island is about how some furry friends are helping out against some feathered fiends. CUNY J School intern Eunice Adekoya filed this report on how the trust for the island relies on its working dogs to help maintain the grounds.
Governor's Island is known for being a tourist attraction and an escape from the busy New York City streets. But the island is facing a threat: Canadian geese. The working dogs of Governor's Island have come to the rescue. Meet Max, Quinn, Chip, and Aspen.
We have 4 dogs currently. So Max is our oldest. He's our veteran. He's 9 years old. And we realized that we needed an additional dog to supplement his work. So we got Quinn. Quinn is 3 years old now. We have Chip, who's almost 2 years old, and Aspen, who's just 1 year old. So they are growing as a team and working as a pack. Good dogs.
Mollie McGinnis works closely with GI's working dogs and is also the Director of Operations Planning and Sustainability.
Good boy. So Quinn has to wind herself down a little bit. Quinn.
The geese problem on the island has been an issue since the park opened to the public in 2014.
And when did you guys realize that the geese were becoming a problem to the visitors and to the lawn?
Canada geese are really attracted to large green spaces like the one we're standing in now. And so when we first opened the park, we had a really large population that was spending a lot of time here doing a lot of damage, and the visitors weren't as comfortable with the geese being around.
That's because the geese are very aggressive with visitors. They also eat the turf, grass, and plants and can potentially spread invasive species on the island that can strangle existing vegetation.
So originally we tried all kinds of methods to keep the geese away, and they weren't very effective. We tried RC cars, we tried strobe lights, we tried flags and other things that kind of block their point of view. But really one of the only things that's worked is having the consistent dog presence on the island.
These aren't just any dogs. Quinn, Chip, and Max are border collies, well known for their herding techniques. Aspen, the newest member of the pack, is a mini Australian shepherd, a breed that's known to have similar herding tendencies.
So Max, with his sheep herding school, he's really great with a lot of commands. He knows which way to go left and right. He's really great at stopping. Other dogs have more of an aggressive, chase to kill instinct. Border collies don't have that at all.
Their job is to chase the geese, but not to harm them.
The other dogs have actually started to just work really naturally in tandem with them. So we work on a lot of basic training, just stay and come, making sure they're staying in the golf cart until we're ready to approach the birds. But then Max really is the leader, takes off, and the rest of them kind of follow around them. They create this really great kind of oval around the geese fly away, and they're really effective at doing their job.
They're also really popular on Instagram, garnering over 8,000 followers on the social media platform.
They have a lot of fans from all over the country. People will message us and ask if the dogs are going to be here on the weekends that they're coming to visit the island. And they're just a really great benefit, not only for the ecological benefit, but for the kind of mascot they provide as well.
Mollie also says that the working dog program is here to stay and that they're going to stick with the border collies for a while. Reporting for Diversity, I'm Eunice Adekoya.
That's our special Featured Creatures episode. We'll be back with new episodes in the fall. Till then, thanks for joining us as we explore our diverse city.